All right, everybody. I just want to make sure we're all oriented in the room. So please welcome to Building Better Wagtail Sites, Traits of a Good CMS. It'll be presented today by my good friend, Michael Tritall from Lincoln Loop. Take it away, Michael.
Megan, just really quick, can you see my screen?
I can see you screen.
All right, just we don't want technical difficulties at the beginning of a talk, right? All right, everybody. This is as Megan said, this is Traits of a Good CMS. I'm Michael Trithall. I am the Director of Strategy at Lincoln Loop. I've been there for about 17 years now. As a Director of Strategy, it's my job to work with our incoming clients as a Python and Django consultancy to figure out what their needs are and structure their problem, build a team around their problem, and see it through. We build a lot of content platforms, CMS-based websites. We've been using Wagtail for a really long time. It's one of the few CMSs that we use, but I would say Wagtail is becoming where most of our efforts are. Um, I've been in the CMS space for about 20 years now. Prior to Lincoln Loop, I did a bunch of work for a bunch of magazines and AOL, and I've always sort of worked in the content space. So I'm always fascinated by the problems in this space for sure, and I'm always trying to figure out how to do it better. One of the things that's come up is over the past few years, we've inherited some Wagtail websites and some other websites, and platform owners always want to know if the software that they've invested in already is one they should continue with. So the question I get is, I don't really know this Wagtail thing. I'm maybe new to the organization. Is this something that I should keep? I love Wagtail, want Wagtail to do well. I always want the answer to should we continue to invest in Wagtail to be a heck yeah or a resounding yes. But it's really hard to say why, right? It's, other than the open source stuff and the community and it just being a solid platform, it's really hard to look at someone's website and say, this is good, you should keep going with it, or here are the few places that you should make changes and it'll be great, or whatever. It's hard to objectively review something as complex as a CMS. The problem is that you can build a really good Wagtail website or you can build a really painful one. Just like any tool, if you use it wrong or if you set it up incorrectly, you're going to have problems. And most people don't abandon technology, they abandon poor experiences. So while Wagtail is great, super user friendly, and allows a lot of flexibility and power, if, over time it's not taken care of, people are going to grumble and they're going to complain about Wagtail. And again, they're not going to know what's working for them, what's not working for them, what's good, what's bad. A lot of software decisions are made around perception. It matters a lot what people think about the technology and what it's doing for them, not necessarily always reality. So I'm trying to figure out how to judge a CMS if it's good or not, so I can tell people, yeah, let's keep going, right? And this is it's a big topic I've been working on for many, many years and has many facets to it. And if it's something that you're interested in, I'd love to talk about it. But I'm kind of centering around these four things. A good CMS may be defined by how coherent, confident, resilient, and trustworthy it feels to editors and platform owners. Again, a lot of metrics and other things support that. I'm not going to get overly technical with some of this talk, but these are the four key areas that I try to focus on, and I'll show you what they mean. The first one, coherence, is essentially content modeling. Coherence in Wagtail is this idea that everything just sort of clicks when you start working with the CMS. You know a CMS is coherent when you don't have to stop and think, where does this live? Why is this called that? Why is this a little bit weird? Coherence is when a CMS feels natural, and you don't need a whole bunch of documentation to understand it, but maybe to sort of just get your feet wet and get started, or maybe it's you're new to the organization, or maybe you need some explanation for why things are the way they are. But it's light. It should just be one of those things where you can just pick it up and get moving. A coherent CMS is going to be one that uses the same language and nouns and verbs that the organization uses. Again, content should be easy to find. It should be predictable. It should feel comfortable, right? Let's show an example of that. I built a lot of university websites. This is a pretty standard setup for us where, there's a department page, a program page, courses. Courses are tagged with instructors. Instructors are probably a snippet. Courses maybe have a subject area or a subtopic or something like that. Notice the naming of this. I'm saying department page, program page, course page, instructor, subject area. This is a coherent structure. The teams that I'm working with at universities understand this. This is the language that they're using. This is a well-modeled system. It works for them. They can understand this hierarchy. This is a system that we've moved away from, that I have seen and had to migrate from, where somebody set up a generic top level page. They have a section or a first level page that always has a big hero and a certain fixed elements. And then they have a listing page, which is really just aggregating all the subpages. Instead of having instructors, they have a generic person block because they anticipated being able to show anybody on the page. Could be a student, could be faculty, could be the janitor. But not a lot of structure here, right? Like you're not using the nouns and verbs that the team uses. If you're coming into the system, you're going to immediately have to map what you understand about the organization and how it works into the CMS. There's too much thinking involved. You can't just pick it up and start working with it. You're going to have to learn the CMS first. So when I'm looking at whether or not a system is good, or I'm trying to tell somebody to continue to working with it, I'm looking at how it's modeled. So content modeling is a key thing for a good CMS. This also extends to blocks. This is a pretty basic example of a supercomposable page with loose block definitions. Hero block, announcement block. This is maybe a 2-column block. It takes media, rich text. Perhaps you're instead of pulling in the news, it's just a list and you're just linking out because you're trying to be super generic, right? A card grid takes cards. You're taking the cards and you design them look like courses. And maybe you have instructor blocks, maybe because that's the one thing that you didn't anticipate. This can lead to StreamField soup. You'll notice on the left that I have that structure that I was talking about. But if it's overly composable and you can move things around too much and you lose the semantic meaning of the page, you can put courses at the top, totally throw off the accessibility of your page, mess everything all up. So again, this is not modeling the real world. This is something that has to be learned to pick up and get moving with. Here's an example of the program page that I was just picking on. In this scenario, maybe our hero is strictly defined. It's a page type. So we're asking for very specific hero fields. Maybe we allow announcement block because it's an optional thing. Our 2-column block takes media as it did before. And then maybe it's the news block is something that actually pulls from the blog app. And it's gonna pull in any post that is tagged, I don't know, with this particular program. We'll have tagged courses. So maybe they'll pull from a model or subpages. And then we'll have tagged instructors. And this could all just be one simple page type, and there's really only a little bit of composability to it. Maybe these aren't really even blocks. Maybe this is just something that you drop a program page in and it all just sort of populates and works. Nobody has to think too much about it. It just works, matches the mental models that work with the team. All right, so when you're trying to decide if your app is coherent, your CMS is coherent, a couple questions to keep in mind. Again, does the CMS reflect how the organization actually thinks and works? Can editors easily describe what a content type is for and use them consistently? A lot of times I'll inherit a CMS where there's a bunch of types, but nobody can really tell me what they're for because they've been abused. So they're using a layout where they maybe didn't intend to use it, or they're putting content into a layout that doesn't make sense. The relationships, are they all clear? Is the taxonomy grounded in real organizational concepts, or is it something that just sort of supports the developers? Do you have snippets that are actually using the nouns and verbs, or the nouns that the organization uses, or are they technology specific or tied too close to the CMS? Can someone new to the team basically figure out how to do things without an extensive training manual? Wagtail is great because it has really good editorial docs, but again, you should be able to come into the CMS and add a blog post without having to read a manual, I would think. All right, confidence. The effect of trust. What is confidence in Wagtail or in any sort of CMS? Confidence is how a CMS feels in daily use. It's knowing when you can do something versus knowing it will always work. It's fields being clear. It's the editors trusting the system. It's being able to come into the CMS and easily kind of figure out what will happen if you make a change. It's preventing catastrophic errors. It's if you delete this page will break, or here's a little bit of help text that lets you know that this thing is required for this page to work. It's ensuring ordering in your stream fields if that's important. It's consistency in the micro patterns. I think if you saw Mariana's talk just a minute ago, you might have saw that she was breaking down buttons. The way you build a button in one spot should be the same everywhere. It's knowing that you can publish and deploy, so even for developers, and it's not going to go catastrophic and break. And here are a lot of CMSs where people are afraid to touch things. It's accurate preview. So if you're using something like a headless system, actually tying that in so you still have a working preview. Some preview functionality gets kind of hidden depending on complexity. And it's really obvious to make edits. You're not hunting and pecking to figure out how to actually use the system. So it's, yeah, I guess it's more of a, if I had to say it, it's kind of a vibe. You feel good about using the system because you can easily pick it up. Here's a quick example. If you were building a card, here's an example of a well-made form of predictable field ordering. This is a very simple card where you're adding your tag items across the top. We're allowing 3. It's very clear what you can do. You're not going to be able to add 10. It sets the tone right away that this is going to be a very simple component. My headline takes text. Maybe it's rich text. I actually know this is a feature. If I remember correctly, the Wagtail team is going to allow rich text editing within single line inputs, I believe. Don't quote me on that. I think I remember hearing that at DjangoCon. That'll be a really cool feature. But basically, the idea here is that I have limited capability to edit my headline text. I can't, within my headline, inject an H5 or an H4 or a table, right? Like right off the bat, I'm being told limit this to 1 to 5 words, super short. I have very limited controls. Rich text has a little bit more functionality, but I can't add images here, for example. And then I have some dynamic actions that I can add limited to. Super clear. The form fields match the card. This isn't out of order. I can come in and just easily grok it and kind of get to understand for how it's going to shake out. An example, if you've seen any of my other talks, you've probably seen this particular view. And I pick on this example a lot, but this is one of those examples where we're not instilling confidence because we're allowing an editor to do something that doesn't make any sense. In this case, there's an about us page. I can add a sub about us page, another about page, a careers page, a careers page, a careers page, a contact country donate page. This is messy. This isn't a good guardrail. This is allowing me to mess up my taxonomy and stick templates and page types just kind of anywhere. So this is the type of thing that's going to shake confidence in being able to use this system because you're not necessarily going to know what does an about page nested in an about page look like. Yeah, these little things add up to make things weird. Speaking of the micro patterns, I think I'd mentioned if you have a button, this is a hard-coded button in a template. We have a very, this particular instance, this CMS site, we have a custom link component that can be styled to look like a button, but the fields are always the same. A button always takes a label, or a link always takes a label, URL, or a page, a new window. You may have a different widget for this, but the idea is that these micro patterns throughout the site are all consistent. This level of care is something that we look for in our CMSs because this means that somebody designed the CMS with intention, which is an indicator towards it, having some love and care, and it's probably in better shape than the average CMS. The other thing you can do with restriction is, keep doing that. The other thing you can do with restrictions is restrict your blocks. Folks probably know this, that if you're building out something like an accordion, you can add an accordion item and then you can restrict the content that goes into an accordion. I feel confident building an accordion because I'm not going to be able to shove an accordion into an accordion or a hero into an accordion, that kind of thing. You have to set users up for success so that they can feel confident. All right. If you're going through your system and you're trying to figure out if editors feel confident, you can talk to them and just get their feedback and see what they feel. One of the things that I've seen with people moving from one CMS to another is that they're almost always apologizing for the old CMS. I'm so sorry that this is a mess. This is going to be a nightmare for you to rebuild. It's not. Wagtail makes a lot of stuff really easy, which is really great. But do the editors trust the CMS to tell the truth about what's live? You'd be surprised how many systems don't actually do that. It's hard to tell if something has been published or not, or if it's even being used on the site. Wagtail gives us really good references for that. Our actions interface is consistent across content types. That's that button example. Does the CMS work to prevent errors and promote good design? That's a big topic, but basically, are we setting people up to create things that make sense? Did anybody put thought into guiding the user towards success? Does the CMS communicate when something goes wrong? You'd be surprised how many times I see in a CMS where you can build something that's horrifically ugly or break something and you don't actually know that it's broken. You just stumble across a random page and see that something snapped because of a change made in a completely unrelated area. And our editors safe to experiment draft without breaking live content. Again, Wagtail gives us a lot of that. Experimentation is really interesting. If you go into a lot of established CMSs, you're going to see a lot of test pages in draft mode. Occasionally those get published and they end up inside site trees or whatever else. So yeah, what are the guardrails that help users actually be successful? And if there are any or not is a good thing to check for. All right, resiliency. Bending, not breaking. Resiliency in Wagtail is can the system essentially survive a redesign? Can it survive a traffic spike? Is there any load-bearing content? If you delete something, if you delete a key snippet, is it going to cause the homepage to break? Um, is there modularity in your page tree structure? An example I came across recently was setting up a generic page type and then inheriting from that and creating other page type or a blog type, and then inheriting that and creating other blog types, as opposed to copying and pasting the blog model around the site as needed. Do you have appropriate test coverage? A lot of people don't. I've talked to a lot of folks who think that CMS that has a lot of composability and a lot of struct blocks needs a test for every single one of those. I think a lot of appropriate test coverage for CMS is testing your dynamic views, your list views, anything that is more app-like. I don't know that you need to write a test for if your hero and your feature block look right side by side. One of the things that I've seen that's worked really well is if you have onion skinning, or I'm sorry, screenshot testing. So if you're able to hit a page that's been built out and then test it against a prior version or another version, and just look for regressions either in the design system or broken blocks or something like that. But yeah, are you going nuts with the testing, or is it just enough to kind of get the gist across? Again, exporting experimentation, feature flags is something that I don't use that often, but I've seen them really helpful on big projects. I've seen feature flags down to the block level, so experimental blocks even. That's kind of cool. Avoiding snippet hell, which I'll get to in a minute, but basically having snippets that are flexible enough, at least the ones that are, with regards to content, flexible enough to be used in different areas and not having hundreds of snippets that just do one very specific thing. And then balanced composability is a big one. Basically, if you've seen any of my other talks, or and back to my earlier point, you're going to want to model content correctly. One of the things that you're going to look for is a clean content model, but you're also going to want to see that editors have some flexibility, some reasonable flexibility within some rules. A site that is too rigid isn't going to be resilient. A site that is has no definitions and has no opinions is also not going to be resilient, because you're going to lose a meaning along the way. And that means it's probably too closely tied to your design. Quick example of snippet hell. This is a very limited example. I've seen worse, but I have an embedded form widget. I also have a form. I have 109 forms, but I also have these 8 embedded form widgets. So somewhere along the line, we forked our form snippet, and they're both essentially just embeds, but there's really no rhyme or reason to this. You can also see that the homepage, we have a snippet to override the homepage as opposed to actually editing the homepage. Not really sure why this site is the way this is, but there's a lot of snippets here that are either have one specific job and there's really just one snippet, or they are forks of snippets. If I were to scroll down, you'd see a bunch of forks of snippets that are very similar, just like the forms at the top. But no one really knows why that happened or where they are or what's going on with them. Nobody went back and put in any care. So if they had maybe a slightly more generic form model, or if the homepage had been a little bit more thought out, these first 3 snippets would make a bit more sense. Speaking of reusable content, one of the patterns my team has used a lot to get around snippet hell is the idea of a generic snippet. I don't know if this is an anti-pattern yet or not, but you're almost always going to have somebody saying, I have a block of content that I need to be able to shove just about anywhere. So it's not a super structured snippet. It could just be a disclaimer. It could be an ad. It could be a one-time ad. It could be something that exists in the footers or pages. But we've been allowing this reusable snippet concept on certain sites with some success. But we don't let anybody go nuts with it. There's still a lot of restrictions. You can't just shove an entire page's worth of snippets or entire pages worth of struct blocks into the StreamField that it allows. moderate flexibility. And then what we'll do is if we see that this is getting used a lot, we'll go back and refactor down and talk with the team about, okay, seems like you're injecting this one thing everywhere. Let's make that a formal snippet. All right, questions to ask for resiliency. Can new reasonable features be implemented without major architecture changes? Can your CMS evolve without you having to rethink everything? Are content structures and design systems decoupled enough to change independently? How closely tied is the design to the CMS? If the CMS is dependent upon the design, that's not resilient at all. Does the architecture prevent the CMS from serving its intended traffic? Sometimes you can relationship your way into a mess. And can CMS editors recover quickly from errors? If they do hit a problem, can they make a quick change? Is it really clear? Again, this is also part of confidence, but sometimes they're going to make a mistake or botch a page. Wagtail is really good about allowing you to revert. So some CMSs are not. All right, last category, or last trait, I should say, trustworthiness. Trustworthiness feels a little bit like confidence, but trustworthiness is what happens when editors and developers don't have to second guess the system. So simple changes work, every preview works, publishing works, saving works. It all works how you would expect. There's consistency over time. It's an accumulation of your system making sense, so being coherent. It's an accumulation of that, people feeling confident, and then it's standing up to stress. A lot of changes don't bring it down. If confidence is the perception of the system and its ease of use, trustworthiness is its reputation, I would say, and the objective reality. You can have a system that people understand, think they know how to use. It isn't completely falling over, but there's still gremlins in it. Or the technology is like kind of aging and no one's really supporting it. So you might not entirely trust its future, even though it's kind of working. So um, trustworthiness makes confidence sustainable, I think. Um, a CMS is trustworthy when you can create on-brand experiences with it. You know that you can put something into it and the output's going to be really, really good. And to that point, that also means accessibility, and it also means being able to hit marketing and SEO goals, right? Like it's giving you good output. It's allowing you to achieve your goals, and you're not going off brand, and it's not messy. It's doing good work. It's just showing up, right? There's realistic permissions. The permission systems make sense to everybody. They actually do promote security, and they allow sensible editing. You're not fighting with them. You're not trying to, I don't know, override them. Same thing with governance. The workflows actually get used, but they're not avoided. People aren't skipping the workflow because it's getting in the way. It's reflective of how the organization works. It's not falling down. The CMS enables intended uptime. So that's good cache architecture, good load, optimized pages, that kind of thing. It's all this over a long term. And then lastly, you can roll back changes and recover from errors. So again, the system is something that just works well. All right. Wagtail, one of the reasons why I love Wagtail is that, and I don't know if this is something that the Wagtail folks are setting out to do, but everything that I have seen is pushing Wagtail users to create trustworthy, solid CMS websites. It's down to little things like the accessibility checker, which works so well that I had to struggle to find a site that I have that has broken accessibility. This is actually on my own profile. I don't on the lincolnloop.com website. I have no idea. I think the email link is just trying to stop spam bots from finding my email. But like, this works really well because this is just baked in, and we get this for free pretty much. So thank you very much. But it's allowing my teams and other teams to build accessible websites. We have this great information bar where I can see, I can see the entire page structure. I know how many words there are in the reading time of a page. This helps people build trust. And one of the reasons why I call this out is I've met a lot of teams who don't know this stuff exists. Or they can't find it. And I think if more people knew about these features within Wagtail, they would start to see the ethos and then the work that the team is doing. It's a little bit of a training thing. I think that most people just don't click those icons, but when I point them out, they're like, "Oh wow, that's really cool. You're helping me build a good thing here." Same thing with revision history. being able, you can see Mariana install this from the link on the website. You can see activity on the website and revert back. That's a really cool feature that enables trust. If I make a mistake, I can go in and I can fix it. And this just works. It's not going to break the entire site. All right, so questions to see if your CMS is trustworthy. Does the CMS consistently do what it says it's going to do? Has the CMS earned a track record of reliability through change? I think some of that is just earned through time. If you've been able to make changes over the years and you consistently come in and update the website, it's not falling down. It's probably meets that mark. Does the CMS communicate honestly and transparently? A lot of CMS help text isn't all that great. And then the rules, permissions, and workflow enforced consistently over time. So are the guardrails and governance that you're trying to put into the CMS, are they respected? Or are people just sort of bucking those and going cowboy style? All right, I think that's it. I'm out of time. Thank you very much. Would love to talk with you about this topic. If you have any thoughts or opinions, please let me know.
Hey everyone, I think we have time for one, maybe two quick questions. So if you want to throw a question either in the Q&A section or in the chat, we can definitely take some time for that. All right. I think I see a question from Casey. I didn't follow the reusable content struct block. What happens when you click on that? Do you get a drop down that lets you pick from a list of content that is maintained elsewhere?
We have a reusable content snippet. That name is being workshopped as of this morning, but basically it's a generic snippet that would allow you to inject anything within that snippet. And it comes up a lot because there's always going to be a sort of one-off case. And it's one of those situations where you need a little bit of governance, like I said. So yeah, in that particular situation, you're selecting a very specific type of snippet that just happens to allow a subset of struct blocks.
All right, and this is going to be the last question because I know this topic will take us out. Luis is asking, where do you draw the line of what's too much flexibility?
Yeah. I tend to not like systems that are super composable, that are incredibly composable. Start with a base set of types, but allow composability within those types. So I'm happy to speak more about this. I even had all the talk about it recently, but if you were to build that program page, parts of that are going to be fixed because they're part of the design. But you're going to probably allow some flexibility, some composability within blocks or around blocks, maybe at the bottom of the page, the middle of the page, something along those lines. I haven't seen fully composable systems hold up very well, and super rigid systems almost always get thrown out. So I can't give you a number like 55, 60%. It's just one of those things where if it's tied to the layout, maybe keep it defined. But someone's always going to want to like stick an ad or a card block in the middle of the page randomly.
All right, everybody. I think that's all the time that we have. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you, Michael, for speaking today.
Yeah. Thank you. Take care.